Longer than us, okay.
Actually, what bird arranged that?
So I can get to Gare, no.
Thank you all for being here. I'll invite Clifford to conduct the roll call.
Yes. So I believe we have a quorum. Victor?
Yes.
Yeah,
You do.
so I'm gonna, based on who's here, I'll just do the roll call. Chair Habiba Grimes.
Present.
Annette Blackwell is not here. Ronnie Cannon.
Present.
Stephen Cavanis.
Present.
Reverend Kenneth Chalker. Colleen Cotter.
Present.
Dr. Gullett, Heidi Gullett.
Present.
Levine Ross. Glenn Schumate.
Present.
Yanela Sims.
Present.
Sheila Wright currently is not here, but I did text with her this morning and she will be here. Janice Concheras and Dr. Charles Modlin and Eddie Taylor have both said they will not be here today. If I can take a moment, Chair Grimes, today we're joined by the newest member of the Citizens Advisory Council on Equity, Mr. Ronnie Cannon. Mr. Cannon currently serves as the Community Engagement Manager at Towards Employment, where he began his career as a receptionist and office assistant. As an East Cleveland native, Mr. Cannon attended Kirk Middle School before his life took a drastic turn. At the time, Mr. Cannon carried a gun. He did so because during that time and in his community, many individuals were victims of robbery. Mr. Cannon did not want to become a victim. In 1993, he was arrested and charged with possessing a gun used in an altercation with a neighbor. He was a juvenile. He was sentenced and served time in the Trumbull Correctional Institution. Turning trial into triumph today, Mr. Cannon serves as an advocate for reducing juvenile bindovers and juvenile justice reform. He actively encourages increased resources and programs for incarcerated individuals. He also provides case management service to connect people to careers, not just jobs. Mr. Cannon, we welcome you. We thank you for your willingness to serve on this most important advisory council. And on behalf of CASE, our members, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move into a moment of silence and reflection.
Voting is of paramount importance. Every election counts, whether it is a vote for an issue or a vote for an office in our local community, our state, our courts, or the national election. Every election counts because every election influences some aspect of people's lives. Primary voting has started in our community, and soon the election season will be in full blast. We will be inundated with ads and other solicitations from candidates seeking our vote. Yes, voting is our civic responsibility, and most citizens over 18 years old are entitled to vote. But voting was not always a default right, and we should deliberately pause and reflect on both the significance and the moral obligation of our right to vote. The Constitution of the United States of America did not specify who could or could not vote. It only established how voting was to transpire, and in most cases, in our earliest history across the country, the translation was that only land-owning white men were eligible to vote, while Black people and women were disenfranchised and could not. To illustrate, in 1869, Black men endured prohibitive obstacles such as poll taxes, literacy tests, and other impediments to exclude and to deter their right to vote. In 1920, women were allowed to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment, and it was not until 1964 with the 24th Amendment and the poll tax was eliminated, and then in 1965 with the Voting Rights Act, that the country proclaimed Jim Crow was ended. In theory, no one is excluded, but suppression continues to be a problem in too many parts of the country to this day. The lives, the blood, and the resolve of Blacks and other non-whites in this country must be heard and represented in all aspects of life. Not rhetoric, not slogans, but real and significant representation at all levels. Words are great, ideas are great, but action is more important and much more significant. We in our everyday lives and as members of CASE, we have a responsibility to be informed, to get out and to talk with people. We have a responsibility to ensure our neighbors, young people, elders, family members, and friends vote. We need to ensure people understand the significance of having their representative voices heard. Our work should remind us all of the importance of voting. Voting is the language of democracy, and it is the basic philosophy of social contrast. In the right to vote is where we find essential elements of a representative democracy. As we continue our very important mission, and if we are to deliver on our mission and beliefs as members of this organization, if we want in some measurable way to ensure equity and a fair chance for the least among us, then we must encourage people to vote. We cannot allow frustration to deter us. Participating in the electoral process is a key freedom in this country. No matter what you believe or who you support, we are obligated to exercise our right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Byrd. That's a powerful message, especially right before the upcoming election day. Welcome.
I'm in the mood.
And welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, Mayor Blackwell. Glad to have you.
Member Blackwell, Honorable Annette Blackwell, we welcome Sheila Wright. We, prior to you arriving, we introduced our newest member, Ronnie Cannon, who was squishing member Wright. Sitting.
Give you space.
All right, welcome,
You want to
Member
sit at the head of
Wright.
class
Ms.
today.
Blackwell. So, welcome, County Executive Renee. Thank you for being
Yeah.
here.
Thank you.
Turn it over to you for comments.
You got it. Is there anybody from the public who wants to? It doesn't
There's
look
no
like it, So,
hands.
okay.
Thank
No,
you.
I don't want to jump in front of anybody.
Thank you.
I wanted to say, first, thank you for the continual robust attendance to this committee. It's good to see all of you. I've said to a couple of you, I wish I saw you every week, but it's good to see you again today. I've been now part of CASE now, I think, for about a year, and have tried not to miss our meetings, and I think the work you are doing is extremely important, so I just wanted out of the gate to say that. I don't think in that year I've thanked Clerk Byrd for her staff work, but thank you for your tireless work. She's got a busy other day job, but some of the special assignments she takes on, just sometimes you do it with such seamlessness that we should remember to thank you for your work and all your organization. And to Chair Grimes, thanks for taking on the job. We had a great meeting. I'm going to start with that. With a few colleagues, Dr. Gullett, Glenn Shoemate, yourself. Am I missing, was anybody else with us in that first trio meeting? And we were just talking about priorities for the year ahead. And I think we'll have more conversation about that during the course of the meeting. But I was appreciative of kind of the renewed zeal for what this group is doing, especially by our chair and team that was around us. Speaking of Glenn, before I forget, if you missed a article, there was a wonderful article on your work, your life's work here, especially in Cleveland, and thanks for being the leader you are. And go back and check out the plaindealercleveland.com. I think it was a couple Sundays ago in February. So yeah, thanks. I wanted to, if I may, Chair, just quick take personal indulgence to really welcome again Ronnie Cannon. I first met Mr. Cannon at a discussion about juvenile bindovers, and he was one of the panelists because of his lived experience. And I just basically, I've been brought down the house. You got to my heart from the beginning of your remarks and the lived experience you had. And at some point, I think you're sharing some of it for the good of all would be great. But I never forgot that meeting. Nayla, you might have been there as well. It was early in my term or even in the transition, but it was over at Olivet Church, and just appreciated your remarks about that lived experience. And then this committee asked for us to focus on new board members that might have lived learned experiences that would be the benefit to all. And you were my first choice for that. So thanks for joining. And thanks for the work you're doing at Towards Employment. I've met you so many times since at Towards Employment on the ground and other jobs we've been working on together. And just good to see you out leading in this community. So thanks again. I just want to comment on one big thing going on. There's a lot that the county is up to. Let me just mention a few. We're excited. I know that this is our months. I always say if we name a special month for anything, let's remember it 12 months of the year. We just came through Black History Month, Women's History Month, Women's History Month this month, Social Work Month this month. But in the commentary about Women's Month, I just want to say I am excited about the Women's Health Commission that is coming forth. I want to thank Councilwoman Conwell for your leadership on that, and also Councilwoman Turner, Dr. Steed from Metro, and many others. But we're going to launch the Women's Health Commission, which I'm really proud of. That came out of the very difficult circumstances of June of 2022 and the Dobbs decision. And I wasn't even in the office yet, but I said we would do everything to protect women's health, and that's sort of, from my vantage, the advent of why we try to get to the Women's Health Commission. So thanks to Yvonne and others, we started out as an advisory committee. We elevated it to a commission. I think it deserves the gravitas of just that. And if you're not on the commission, looking out to these, especially our women leaders, we welcome ideas and input, and there's going to be other ways to input to that commission. But stay tuned. That should be coming through County Council for approval in the coming month. But what else do I got that I want to mention? We realized in this administration early on we had to find a better path for our most vulnerable young people that were, continued to be dropped off and left in the care of our workers at the Jane Edna Hunter building, which is the human service, one of our human service buildings. It's just become, unfortunately, a pattern in our community that a place where kids are being dropped off is the government building. You guys have read about this. We're trying to do something about it. The do something about it is working with the centers, that's formerly the Centers for Family and Children, on a youth wellness center that will be a new front door for kids. For a kid who, as I mentioned last year, it was a real epiphany to me to come into this job and get a call. I think I've said this before, but it bears repeating. To get a call from a social worker at Jane Edna Hunter, my second week on the job, that a teenage gal had been dropped off out of an ambulance at the Jane Edna Hunter building in the wasn't your hospital, by the way, but it was. It doesn't, really, no matter the where she came from, to be in a position on a late Friday night to try to find, to stabilize her, to find her literally food and shelter. That's where our workers, that's where they're at. That's why I say social work is every month. We celebrate it this month, but that is that was an indicator, an early canary in the mine to me, that we had to do something different. I said to others, the 2 weeks after that, a young student, 6-year-old boy, was dropped off in a bus. Not the bus driver's fault. Couldn't find couldn't find anybody that could be a caregiver to the kids. So it literally was left with our workers. So we're going to provide a place of dignity for kids and a new front door, the best home away from home that we can. And we're going to build out at what's formerly the Cleveland Christian Children's Home at 114th and Lorraine, with the centers, a 58 room bed facility for our most vulnerable young people who either await placement or return to their family, neighborhood, and community. I'm proud of that, working again with council, Yvonne and others. Yvonne chairs our HHS, so she sees all of this, and we're just working toward a new solution. There's a whole lot more upstream that we've got to work on that with, obviously, expanding our placement system, trying to create proximate placements, trying to, where appropriate, reconnect in communities where kids have been. And that's just another major initiative we're working on. So from women's health to children's wellness, those are just two things I wanted to cite as some of our ongoing work. We have been fortunate to really receive sources of state and federal support. The state, as you know, is a little complicated right now. It's sort of like the cheese gets moved and you try to grab it when you grab it. And I don't mean to sound facetious about that, but we're hoping the Senate and the House and the state get together on budget, because we've had great help from some of our state legislators who wanted to help. Notably, in the case of the Children's Center, Bride Rose Sweeney has been a real champion. But as much as she wants to put money toward it, we need the Senate to agree to it too. And our delegation, I think, is very strong across the board. But we'll keep at it. We need $8 million to close the gap on that. The thing I most wanted to speak to, Chair, this morning was a bit of an update on our Justice Campus. It's been through council, and the narrative of everything that we're referring to it as at this point is a central services campus. There's carefully chosen words that we may change out the terminology, but it's central in our county. I'll talk a little bit more about what it is. It's about, we hope, justice and wellness. So services is an important word, and campus is an important word. But at the Central Services campus, that with the help of council, I was able to purchase the properties on your behalf. I say you, all of our 1.2 million persons in this county. This will be a facility at Transportation Boulevard, I-480 in Granger, 72 acres that will be, we hope, a campus where persons who go to the campus, if they're coming home, return in a more well state than they arrived. And so to kind of put a finer point on that, we're not just building a jail, we're building, we hope, a justice services campus. And I would like to come back to an idea about asking you, and we briefly broached this with our team that we visited with Chair Grimes last month. I would like to come back to you to ask you to consider being a bit of a roundtable resource to us at the county at large on this issue. There's been talk in the community about different kinds of committees that might, advise, review, oversee, and this isn't to say that it's mutually exclusive to you, but I think the Citizens Advisory Committee on Equity would be really in the wheelhouse of what we're trying to do. So let me talk a little bit about our field visits to other places to give you a sense of what we're trying to get to. When I asked for a larger expanse of land from council and showed the sites, it's not easy. There's a variety of things we could debate right now, and I respect divergent points of view on this. But what we thought we needed from some informed visits to other places is frankly more land to do more things, to develop more services, and to have the kind of land we have. The one thing I've noticed in the travels I've made with persons like Yvonne to other cities is they all wish they'd had more land. Why? Let me talk about kind of what might play out on a 72-acre expanse. Yes, we will be required to build a jail as we know them, but we should think a bit about what that building, even in the way we narrate it, is. We have a population who tonight's jail beds probably lingers around 1,400 to 1,500.
Yep,
Yeah,
14
to 1,500
70.
persons. It's a high probability, as you guys know, that there are many people who, but for, may not have to be there. And the but for might be things like bail, cash bail, might be things like a city policy on minimum number of days stay so that police officers can do their investigative work. But there's a debate about whether that's even kind of on the teetering of violating a civil liberty, right? The person hasn't actually been charged yet, right? So there's a lot of persons that might be in our system that don't have to be in there tonight. There are people that do, but there are a lot of people who don't. I think I'm probably speaking to a well-educated group on these matters, but the point about the campus is we need enough space, and now I'll tell you kind of some places we visited. And Yvonne, you've been on at least, I think, one or two of these site visits. We visited Franklin County, Marion County. Were you at Franklin? Yeah, Franklin, Columbus, Marion, Indianapolis, and just 2 days ago, Davidson County, Nashville. In and out same day. Took a very expansive tour of the Nashville facility. What I'm looking for when I go to these, and I have layperson's eyes on this, we have people with us who are experts that work now in our facility. We have persons from the Sheriff's Department. we want to expand our expertise, lived and learned experiences. But what I'm looking for, one, is how people are treated, obviously, in the jail. You know, what's the lay of the landscape inside? And then what are the services that are provided inside and outside? And here's a few things that we've seen. I'll come back to our campus. In Indianapolis opened last year, Columbus opened this year, Nashville, I think, opened 2 or 3 years ago. But they've all advanced beyond where we are here in Cuyahoga County, admittedly, in my opinion, to really focusing on services within. When Yvonne and I were at Franklin County this last time, we got off the elevator, and the very first thing we saw was a classroom going on. If you and I got off the same elevator at the same time, it was inspiring to see the very first site in the jail is a classroom, just in a room like this. You know, persons weren't, it wasn't in any kind of solitary condition or anything. Everybody was around the table learning. We went into a pod that, you know, first of all, just by the very nature of the design, was much more humane. There's terms I'm learning that I hadn't known before, like biophilic design, things that de-escalate trauma and concern, just the physical look of the place. You know, rather than a blank gray wall, is there artwork? Is there either visuals? Is there indoor? Is there natural light? Is there even, where possible, outdoor natural air coming in? Yes, yes, and yes in Franklin County. So the indoor experience is phenomenal. We met with residents. I'm calling them residents in the facility of Franklin. We personally met 3 gentlemen, all in for murder, and all in a state of despair about where their lives were going. But we had conversations with these gentlemen who have been deputized as ambassadors. They're very self-aware. 1, 2, 3, each of them was very self-aware of their experience and what had happened in their lives and what they had to offer to others. So they were deputized as ambassadors. I don't know if the word was ambassadors, navigators, but they were almost deputized by the staff as leaders that they would work with. The chief of the unit in Franklin County said, what we're really trying to do here is community policing, which is to say, let the residents kind of self-police one another. And that's a pretty humanizing approach to all of this. Franklin County, as far as I can see right now, is kind of the gold standard for how they treat those in their custody. They have at the exit, by design, social services that are profoundly helpful, I think. Housing services, transportation services, work training, work opportunities, workforce development coaches. And those aren't just like, hey, you're leaving, so here you go, here's a packet of information. These are persons who come in the jail and work with folks as we go. But there is this resource center that people can do everything from making sure a phone that is returned to them is fully charged to how do I get to where I really have to go without just giving a bus ticket and see you later, it's down the street. You know, and these are important pieces of the puzzle. There's housing navigators who are thinking about what is somebody's next step beyond the shelter that they might be at the night after. What's their next step options? So this is a picture of maybe the future, what we saw in Franklin County as it relates to Cuyahoga County. In Davidson, we were blown away by the behavioral care center that they have up and running, at least their aspirations for it. And Yvonne, we fill in, or you were in Franklin, not Nashville, but Council President Jones and Councilwoman Turner and Councilman Miller and Kelly, we've had a really good delegation of our council, out looking at what could be. But in Nashville this week, the Behavioral Care Center is one where persons self-seek mental health counseling, addiction services, and and there's a screening that happens in the central booking. What's notable is that they might be booked in and then come out to the behavior center, and then, if appropriate, there are persons from the public defender's office working with them right away on expungement. And that, is a game changer, right? So this is a whole new world, what we're seeing out there. In Marion County, there was an on-site diversion center, which in practice gives a police officer an option if, and we sort of work in the world of general police orders, GPOs, that's okay for an officer to have kind of a set of rules that could govern what they could do and what their options are. What's not okay is when they don't know what they can do and they just drop somebody off at jail, or they drop them off at your hospital, and they drop them off at the bus, shelter, if the jail won't take a person. A diversion center, we've already talked about, we've built one in this community, but one that's potentially on site was one we explored in Marion County, and that diversion center creates the option under the right circumstances for an officer to bypass the jail and go right to the diversion center. All of those happen on these 3 campuses, and bring it back to our campus. What I'd like to see in working with the community is a little of all of that, that we have behavioral health services that are profoundly helpful to members of our community, that we have a health clinic center, that's in community, and Metro Health is the obvious partner in that design, that we have, I've been impressed at our jail that there's a pregnancy center, a birthing center that's been built into the jail, and it seems like it's a little ahead of the curve on some Laurel Diaz's work over there. So seeing all of what we've seen and then bringing it back here, we do have an Office of Reentry. Speaking with Simeon Best, he would like to be on site, to give people resources and services on site. We've discussed with council, we could have a diversion center on site, not to say it's mutually exclusive with what's been built on East 55th. But when you add up diversion, behavioral health, medical center, work training opportunities, reentry opportunities, wraparound services that give people things like housing, transportation, and work opportunity advice, you could have something special. What I noticed with Davidson County is they're very focused on the public visits. This world has gone very much toward video, sadly, but also perhaps efficiently to help people move out of jail faster. There's certainly a lot of video arraignment now. There's video counseling with lawyers. There's video visits with family. I don't know what's optimal. I still kind of personally like the live visit opportunities, but I'll tell you the real truth of this facility here. There hasn't been a lot of family visits. It's just, it's not, for whatever reason, currently accommodating that, but it's not atypical with other facilities. Off on that tangent for a minute, the conversations we've had with the other partners down in Nashville and Columbus and Indianapolis has been, you've got to work very closely with your courts, obviously your prosecutor and your public defender, because, the name of the game in terms of population management, besides all the community upstream work we got to do at the moment, is there a diversion option, and or is there a way to get people to have a reduced amount of stay? 7-day reduction in stay in Franklin County equates to a $120 million savings in a jail build-out, if you want to just look at it on the economic side of it, because there's 250 less beds needed at $500,000 per bed in cost. So that alone is a winner, not to mention the more important thing, which is social cost and benefit. So all of this is going to take some work in the system of build out, but what I'm trying to do is use the build out first to build a campus that is one that we someday are showing other people, as a vision for what the future really looks like, and a campus that serves and heals. And as one person once said to me, where people return, in a better state than when they arrived. And So it's gonna take a heavy lift, but I wanna use this opportunity of building the facility to have a real conversation about the justice system. And that's gonna include all of us, it's gonna include our court system, our public defender system, and our prosecutors. And I appreciate, Colleen, your work at Legal Aid, because it's certainly gonna need partners like, our nonprofits, and I think all of you representing nonprofits in health, human services, and social services. We need you. So I've spoken a long time about this in this meeting, but I wanted you to get a picture of what we've seen firsthand from my mouth to your ears. And I don't know, Councilwoman Conwell, if you have anything to add to.
Well, I just wanted to add the director, I don't know what her title is, but she was an officer and now she's the director of the programming. So director of social work or whatever case management or whatever they call, dynamic lady. She went on the tour with us and she explained, what they do in the daytime, how they keep them very busy, active in classwork, all that. So it's not just sitting around and watching TV. And so I invited her up to HHS committee. And so hopefully in April, she said she would love to come to Cleveland. She's never been to Cleveland, but warmer weather. So we're gonna shoot for April, and I will let this Mayor Levine will let this committee know so you can participate. And I gave her the option, like, we got technology. You don't have to travel, but she's willing to come in. So that I think that will be a great asset and we'll try to kind of style it where she's not just presenting, but where we can ask questions for those of you guys that didn't get to see it firsthand or hear it firsthand. See what they offer. It's really awesome. I think I only saw one jail, but I think it's number one so far.
I think it's right now the gold standard. And all three of the jails we've seen so far, we're gonna go up to Wayne County as well and see what they're doing in Detroit. But the common denominator on the program is that there's an assigned leader of programming for the residents who are there. And they're hands-on. And just like the woman you met, there's persons in India and Nashville, similar skill sets. We probably have some of this now, but we don't have all of this. And I'll use one example is hearing from Brandon Krastowski at a meeting at the Board of Health yesterday. He said, I'm in 11 facilities here in Ohio and other states. I've got iPads or the equivalent of tablets in 100,000 persons' hands in jails across the country where they're learning culinary skills in video conferencing. And my first question, why not here, right? In your hometown and county. Not for lack of his effort, it's for our receiving that. So there's some opportunity to do some skill development, especially in the culinary arts, because we've got core competency here. But we're going to chill.
No, I was gonna say, kind of a nod to your point, where some of the people that you spoke with said you have to have these other systems at play. I guess my question is, if you're gonna continue to visit places or even revisit some of the places, would it make sense to maybe get someone from the prosecutor's office?
Absolutely.
The city, because, the point of impact, the initial point doesn't happen at the county level. And so.
It does. You're correct. It does make sense to do that.
Someone from a judge, administrative judges from different, I know that could be a coordinating nightmare, but
Yep.
I have found, and I know it's early to get people to buy in through the process.
Absolutely agree. We've been trying, just for everybody's, cost conscious, we've been trying to do it on low budget. Davidson, we were in and out the same day, up and out of the airport at 6 and back by 10 p.m. But we took a crew. I'm personally pleased we're taking a coalition of people from the sheriff's department, because they need to be the buy-in, because they are the first interface. But you are correct. Everybody is saying you're going to have to get the buy-in of your courts, your prosecutors, and others.
Because you'll
yeah.
lose them before they
Yeah.
get to you.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't build the best system and then not have it properly, staffed.
Maybe we
and
should have
formed.
videotaped the tours
Yeah.
while we were there.
Yeah, that's true.
That's something
Yeah.
too.
We should have.
Yeah, and I did want to mention, there was one noticeable downside in one of the three facilities we were in. The Indianapolis facility has the sort of built with all the great intention, the facility that can work, but they're understaffed. And that understaffing has caused going from more of a direct supervision model to a video surveillance model, and they've sort of lost it, and they've admitted that they're way understaffed. So you also, not only does staff need training and culture needs changing, but you need enough people to be partners in the progress, So, yeah,
I've made a lot of notes.
yeah.
This is not probably the place to share everything that's on my mind. Very close to this, a family member that works in this space, so I live and breathe it every day. But you spoke about 72 acres. One of the issues that mayors have is that we have these municipal jails.
Yeah.
And I look at my budget and I'm spending meals and I have a physician on duty and I have a huge turnover of corrections officers. And so they're constantly, just a point of humor, the inmates are jamming my toilet, so I have huge plumbing issues. And I have pregnant women that have to be taken from my jail to South Point or Marymount. In your overview, large helicopter overview, has there been any discussion with 72 acres of perhaps looking at municipal jails going away and this becoming this part of this system?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. A few things you said. You mentioned the helicopter overview. That's a fair statement because we need to get down to the ground with subject area experts on each of these areas. So that's one of the goals, and that's why I'm kind of appealing to this committee to be a group of insight advisors like you're doing right now. But just want to acknowledge that this is high level that needs to get to the ground, but we're trying to get proximate with these visits and need to include more in them. The issue on the courts, Mayor, one very specifically in Garfield, our mutual friend, Mayor Burke, Mayor Garfield, he is asking for kind of a discussion about that specifically in Garfield. I think Judge Nicastro has also felt that the court, there's a timeliness to this conversation because there's just a datedness to their facilities there. So in Garfield specifically, we are looking at that. The question is, can that be more of a shared resource to the rest of the mayors and your municipal courts? And I'm all open to that. I think, again, there's people with greater subject expertise than me that we'll talk to that's within the county, group. But yeah, we need to. And then you mentioned the pregnancy condition of some of our residents. I mean, we did, I think, because of the drive of a few persons, partners with Metro, we've done something right over here. It's not like we've done everything wrong. One of it seems to be, at least my first couple of observations of the center, is we're doing right by pregnant women in custody. But we need to make sure we get that, perfect So yeah, I want to address that. I mean, there are resources like BBC in this community that could be a huge resource to us, Jasmine Long's group, that,
Just to add to that,
Yeah.
that is our municipal court
Yeah.
for Maple Heights.
I apologize, yeah, so that's
I'd love
that's
to
one.
see more of that, but I'm not gonna
Yeah.
park there.
Yeah.
The other thing is, everything you've said is music to my ears.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear it because
Yeah.
we do have a workforce
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
So, as we look to have these inmates come out better than they went in, it certainly will address that. It addresses certainly poverty.
Mhm.
More than a third of the head of households in my city are female, is working 3 jobs with 3 kids, because there's only one breadwinner. So I look forward to that, and I know there's a flow chart that shows how this all addresses all those things. The other question I have, given the bind-over issue, which is a huge issue, I think it's probably the crux of this upcoming election, has there been a discussion to keep juveniles separately from the adult population on this campus that you're building? Has there been any consideration of that?
I mean, the answer is yes, there has been a discussion, but it has to be, of paramount priority. It's been on the radar, but we need to, drill down on it. And then obviously the discussion debate, like you referenced, of bind over period is right now in front of us in the prosecutor's race and debate. I was so informed by you, Ronnie, and what you and your panelists had to say. I don't know if you have anything to say on that since we're on the subject.
Absolutely, I totally agree that there should be a separation from the juveniles that's in the facility compared to the adults, obviously for all practical purposes. also additional services that they need, catering to their age demographic, obviously. But I did have another
Please, yeah,
specific question.
Go ahead.
I would, unless,
One more thing.
please.
He's used to me. Because I'm gonna come back to these things, they're really important. I think of something this magnitude for us to be, you mentioned that Franklin County is the gold standard, and we want to get this right. We know the predominant population in these jails are Black men and women. They're Black children. We need a voice that supports this. Certainly, I'm 2 miles away from Norfolk Heights. If you just keep going down Turney Road, you're gonna run into Maple Heights. And so this is an issue for residents, and it's a concern for Black people especially. And have you thought about connecting with the Equal Justice Center, EJI, Brian Stevenson, to bring in a trusted, proven voice? Of course, I have to shop with her. She spent 2 years there, so I lived EJI with her.
Yeah.
And now she's with the Children's Law Center. So this is a part of my discussion every day with this young lady. Has done this kind of consulting all over the country. There's data. If anybody's been to the museums and what he's done, and just really how we've gone from mass incarceration and from slavery and all. I think it is an investment to be made. As we're building something amazing, and it can be amazing, we can turn what is scary, what is negative, what people are apprehensive to something that people can embrace in getting it right. I know you said you're in a low budget. I heard that before I said this, but I think it is something, being a member of the city, being in my seat going on almost 9 years now, really having a pulse on it, and being the safety director, having that jail across the street right from my office, I think it would lend itself to credibility. Chris, being honest, you're a white man in this space. You're a white man in this space. Doesn't mean you can't get it right. But to have the right advisement, and I'm so happy, and congratulations and welcome to this man that's going to bring some lived experiences. As an aunt of 2 young men that have been incarcerated since they were 18 years old, my lived experiences. And that's how my daughter got into justice, because she was there at 9 years old when her 2 cousins went to prison, and still works with them and is a champion for that. It changed her life, and it's changed my life. I strongly suggest that you perhaps consider bringing in a voice like that to confirm, to justify, to redirect, to make suggestions, to input on us getting this right. This is a phenomenal opportunity to make changes that really speak to justice, equity, and healing in a way we've never had an opportunity before. And you're the person to do it.
Well, I am grateful for all your comments, but the last point, one thing we continue to say is introduce us. I mean, if you've got the contact you referenced, let's have that introduction in the meeting, if you would. And warmly embrace this. And I agree with you on, what you're saying about leadership and making sure that we've got appropriate representation of this and insight and through a racial lens. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing your story too. One comment I wanted to make, Mayor, just before we jump off and go to you, Ronnie, and I apologize, I've taken a lot of the time.
This is important.
Okay. I thought we agreed, so I want to make sure. But on the budget, I wanted to be clear. I'm always conscious of. I try to be of how we spend, your tax dollars on an everyday basis. So my comment was more about the visits, because there are people out there who will say, well, that's, why are they just taking visits to every city? Well, because we're learning. And I want to let everybody know, you guys are voices in the community. I think Yvonne could attest to pretty low budget visits we make. But we are learning in every one of these. If they're not gold standard, more gold standard, closer to it than we've been before, they all say we learn from somebody else. And every one of them, I mean, it's been really amazing, the camaraderie we've developed with the administration teams have said, we hope you too will be having people visit you someday as the goal, you know? So I've definitely adopted that, is let's create a best practice.
Say we should end up the best.
Yeah, we should be the next visit, you know? That's what that last guy said.
Certainly, that's the goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Telling us the
but-
bad points.
Yeah, exactly. But to kind of also kind of put a pin on the overall point on budget, I didn't want to suggest, and by saying that our, you know, we're being cost conscious of our site visits, I want to appropriately budget to this project, you know, and it's really an initiative more than a project. It's ongoing. I want this to be not, you know, in the building world, as Glenn knows well, there's the, and you know well, there's the terminology of value engineering. I don't want to hear that too often, you know, I mean, because that usually means some good idea got cut. You know, but I also think we need to find resources to invest in programming. You know, we've got a partner in the Gun Foundation for sure. You know, no question that Tony Richardson is on this and wants to help with a lot of, you know, the upstream justice work, so we're taking them up on it. Example, they just funded a pilot, which I'm sure you'll be personally getting to know a lot more too, because it is a pilot in the Hillcrest communities for a co-responder program that models off of Shaker. But for anybody who's not as familiar, as maybe the mayor is on this, you know, Shaker demonstrated over their first 2 years that they were able to dispatch a co-responder, mental health specialist. Recovery Resources was the first partner they used and have become a part of Metro, but the particular specialist documented her cases of when she was out with officers. She showed the types of cases they were involved in. Somebody who's a hoarder doesn't need to go to jail. They probably need some mental health counseling, right? Or any just assistance of any kind. But she impressed us when we visited her in Shaker that she could document 7 potentially averted suicides because a mental health specialist was on site. That's real, right? And so we took that idea and asked Mayor Weiss if, you know, his police chief, fire chief, EMS, they were all on board with this. Could they be kind of the leaders in other communities to talk about their experiences? So lo and behold, 5 other communities are going to join in a pilot for the next 2 years because Gund has invested in this, frankly, because Tony Richardson, the new CEO of Gund, not so new now, but he's bought into this. So there's an idea that might itself divert jail population, you know, from day one. So I guess large point was budget. I don't want to skimp on budget matters that matter, you know? And I'm sorry, Ronnie and Sheila, you guys. Yeah.
I guess for me is outside of the program and the structure of the facility, and maybe this question is being posed as you guys are taking these trips, but for me, I'm just concerned as to what's the buy-in from the community, right?
Yep.
As you're talking to these facilities, what were some of the challenges that they face from their citizens, right?
Yeah.
Because as Mayor Blackwell mentioned, to come across in our community, you got this, you know, Caucasian male just pushing to have a jail in place. So what learnings have you guys, you know, gathered from that?
You know, it's a honest answer, Ronnie, is it's TBD. I think we need to do a little more research on how that's going over. But I will say that, like Councilwoman Connell mentioned, the program officers within the facility, I mean, it's interesting, they're Sheriff's Department employees, and to have a Sheriff's Department employee kind of step out of the box and be more about social programming than necessarily what's represented in the badge, it's exciting. You know, it's exciting to see this new era, you know. And I guess we're kind of right now looking at it through the lens of how is it serving the community from the inside out. But your point about the outside in,
Right.
Probably need to do some more homework on that. Feels to me like if there are aspects of these facilities that feel like there's almost like a walk-in retail opportunity, and meaning like at least cited in Davidson this week, we have family resources at the ready if people walk in here. You know, what's going on with your loved one who's here? You know, what are the opportunities when they leave? What are some of the community resources that you may not know about? I think the more we can interface and open the doors, and Mayor Burke, you know, Garfield's really important in this because they're the host community, but he's totally open to that kind of stuff as far as I've been able to. So I think if we and then people are going to come from everywhere, but you know, they're coming to Garfield where we're gonna be. And I think if we can create that open front door, all the better. The other thing I wanted to mention, you guys, some of you have been in meetings, some of you are leading these things, but there is some work, not with the Bail project, but with the Unbail project, on a system that would give somebody a navigator about the status of their loved one, you know, and that's an app that literally somebody can track where are they at in their court proceedings, you know. This stuff's like stuff that's out there technologically, but doesn't exist in our ecosystem today here locally, you know. So, yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, you know, and to Ronnie's point with respect to the community and kind of the mayor's point about Brian Stevens. You know, if you can get someone who, or a group that can kind of be out front with you on this, Chris, I don't see why we couldn't look, I don't run a county, so I'm just I don't know what this would. Why couldn't we do some version of an audit to say what dollars are being spent right now to all of these things, whether it's mental health, social work, and then just say, okay, where can we divert existing dollars so we're not creating have a new budget, right? Am I right? And then the other piece is, I think about Say Yes. I think about all these campaigns that once Northeast Ohio makes a decision to support something, the sources will come. So I think that you are brilliant in understanding how money moves through government, how to fundraise. I think that your friends and your colleagues will trust you. I don't know how long I've never seen you this excited.
Oh, good. Because you've given me a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you excited, but this, I can tell this is
Yeah.
streaming for
Yeah.
you. And so I would just say, one, let's look at the existing dollars and get your friends, talk to the mayor, talk to the different mayors, say, okay, where are you spending where are we spending money? Because what I've come to understand, it is typically a reallocation of existing resources. We don't always have to go into the pocketbooks, but where we do have to go into pocketbooks, the same players that went and said yes to Say Yes and other initiatives that have been Northeast Ohio wide, I think we move to that point, and you get the community players, you get Mr. Stevens.
Who has $1 billion
to say,
foundation.
but you get them to say,
Yes.
listen, I mean, this is happening. We have to address this, but we want to do this in a different way. We want to demonstrate that we're listening. And I mean, I've watched this community do more with less.
Yeah. Right on. I mean, it's not for lack of partners and resources. In Davidson, they said, you know, we've got 600 nonprofits in our county, and we're working with them. And I was like, I didn't want to be, braggadocious and say we've got 5,000, and I think that's a good thing. There's a lot of commentary about kind of merging nonprofits and stuff. I just want to focus on drawing their resources, and I don't mean always financially, just talent. You know, you're 100% right. It's got to be a team effort, and you know, this isn't just building a jail. This is changing an ecosystem of justice. You know, so well, thank you for the
Thank you.
great exchange. One last. Oh, sorry, Rev.
Can I,
Yes.
two questions. What's your perception about the mood that is out there in terms of where you want to go, or where a number of agencies do this? But
Yeah.
for instance, I was a part of a process a couple of weeks ago where the county prosecutor was talking about the motivation for bindovers for juveniles, and that the motivation was that there were many families of victims who were angry and want more bind over. So, I mean, what kind of stream are we running against? Is that true? And how do you address those things? And secondly, what about the issue you mentioned just some minutes ago relative to cash bail and people who are in jail that shouldn't be or could be mitigated about that? Are we making any progress with the cash bail issue?
Let's take both of those, but let me ask Nayla to take the second question first. Yeah.
Sure. So Reverend Chalker, in terms of the cash bail issue, we, I believe, are starting to make real progress. As most of you know, and I know Sheila, you're familiar, we work very closely and collaboratively with the Bail Project, which is a wonderful organization really doing powerful things in communities across the country in terms of getting folks out of jail quickly and have a tremendous success rate. We are in current conversations with them. How do we institutionalize what they've begun here over the last 3 years? We are also meeting with our partners, which, as again Sheila mentioned, on the front end with the administrative judges, both of the Common Pleas Court as well as the municipal court, who really make those decisions about bail. Chris, as the executive, as we all know, doesn't determine bail, but we have to get our political buy-in from our partners in the justice system to show them the data that you don't need to keep people in jail just because they cannot afford it. I'm a former, most of you who know me as friends know I'm a former New York City prosecutor. I'm a former federal prosecutor. I've worked in the space for a long time. There is a place for people who need to be in jail to stay in jail. I believe that. That is my personal belief. But that is the most violent among us. Those are the folks who have shown us that they are not going to return to court. They have a risk, a flight risk, and a public safety risk. That is what our Constitution says. That is not people who are stealing from the mall in Beechwood. That is not people who are stealing my Kia. I mean, and I'm speaking personally, they don't belong in jail because they cannot make a bail. So I think we are working with that. Reverend Chalker, I am hopeful. We have some things on the horizon that I won't share, but really making even more strides in terms of new positions we want to talk about to do that. We are also, Chris and I, working on other upstream justice issues with Unbail and other programs. So making good movements. Fingers crossed, it will continue. These conversations will continue. We are probably going to schedule another meeting within the next 4 to 6 weeks with the judge to move in this space. Does that answer your question, Reverend
That's
Chalker?
very helpful, thank you.
Of course.
Can I share something with Reverend Chalker? So the Franklin County Jail, for a facility standpoint where we have to sit, worked in this kind of space. So when you enter in, when the officers enter in with the potential residents that have to come, because arresting officers from different municipalities are bringing them in. It's a room where they have not entered jail or anything like that. And so there's a place for them to get tested and all that. And there's also that in that space is where they can use the phone freely, get any kind of bail, get any kind of help. They have not entered into jail. They have not gotten fingerprints. They give them every opportunity. They have a municipal clerk office there to work with them because they haven't entered jail. We don't want them in jail. We're trying to work the way they do it. They're trying to work with them before they even enter into that space. And then if they can't get bail, then they enter in a space that's still not jail. It's a place where they have a nice room set up where they can have amnesty. If you have anything on you, you don't want any addition. They're giving them every opportunity. That's why I like that space. Once, then twice before if you can make it out before those two, you're not going to get booked. You're not going to go into the jail and get fingerprinted. And then the exit is awesome because when you think you're coming down this long hallway, looks institutional, the hallway, but the rooms are awesome. And then you go into this room, like you're walking into here. And you're like, wow, I'm not outside yet, but it's very welcoming. They have staff. How can we get you, what can we help you with? So it's just, I'm sad that we didn't take video,
Yeah.
but the visual is awesome.
And I also think I've actually visited, I was on the first visit with Franklin
Everybody
County.
should go.
I also think what the councilwoman is also speaking about that I should have brought up when I made my initial remarks is another thing that I believe I'm going to be tasked with, which we'll move
You can
it
do it.
forward, is central booking.
Yep.
And trying to get some sort of central booking here in Cuyahoga County. I grew up in a system in New York City. Central booking is very different than anything we will get here. So do not think it's going to be New York City central booking. As a prosecutor, I sometimes worked 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. to get people out of jail. That's not going to happen, I don't believe, in Cuyahoga County. We're not going to get prosecutors, we're not going to get defense attorneys, and we're not going to get judges to work 24 hours and go to night court. But what we can do is maximize where we're at and move people, similar to what the councilwoman is talking about in Franklin County, where once you are arrested, you are out, and the turnaround is within 24 hours, where you are not becoming a resident of the Cuyahoga County Jail, which means our numbers from 14 to 1,500 are now at 1,700, and we're going back to the days that we all remember pre-Chris, but I was here, where we had 22, 23 people in a jail not built to house that many individuals. So I think that's part of it too.
Yeah.
So just to piggyback, to follow up on what both of you are saying and to further answer the question.
What about the pressure
Culture.
to have more bind overs?
I was gonna ask Colleen on that last point, is there anything you wanted to add on the, okay,
Yeah.
okay. To come to that, Reverend Chalker, but to agree with, both Nayla and, Councilwoman Conwell, what Councilwoman Conwell described, because you are gonna be working on this, and you described the model that is working.
Told
That-
ya,
that-
told ya.
That model, you can't say it enough, even having our Metro Health partners here just coincidentally today is helpful because, you know, in that central booking area, we're clinicians, we're, you know, behavioral health specialists who understood, you know, what a person really needs. The prosecutor does have a presence in Davidson, and the public defender has a presence. So even if we can't get wholesale movement of every, you know, every aspect of it, if we could get some to serve. I mean, Davidson did have a night court. I thought, God, you know, wouldn't that be great? You know, I mean, because then people are moving on Friday nights back to their home and, you know, not wait until Monday morning to even get a hearing. So, to go now to Reverend Chalker's, the most difficult question is culture, right? And practice. And I can start with the premise that when at least we can bring best practice and pilots to the equation, maybe we can get an ear. I just am gonna lean in on the premise that somebody might offer that this is the way we've done it, we'll always do it this way. Why? Why? And let's talk about I liked what Sheila said, or getting out in the community and really looking at, however you were saying that, like the benefits of doing an audit of how our nonprofits could actually serve, the communities better in their community than we can in the jail. As Nayla said, there is a population percentage of people that have to be there by the laws that govern us, but there are persons who don't, and I think there's a high percentage of persons there tonight that don't necessarily, had we done all these other things. But your point specifically about bind over, I'm in a different place on this than my colleague, my other elected county office holder. I've told them that, we've had our discussions, and I respect divergent points of view, like I said, but can we get a hearing on a better practice, a best practice? In certain circumstances, can we pilot this? How do you change culture other than, it may not be revolutionary as much as evolutionary, you know that, but we gotta chip away at a better practice. And again, Ronnie, I'm like, you're ringing in my ear since the day I met you, informs my conversations with prosecutor, I think with public defenders, we've tried to actually give them more money in the budget, and I think we'll succeed, Yvonne, over time, but to get them more support, to do more work on behalf of our kids, so I'm gonna stay at it and continue to repeat best practices, and would you pilot with us, it's, the rest of this is public discourse that we're having right now in something called an election, right? So I mean, and I think public's doing a good job of vetting this right now in this community. Now, I want to end on a positive. I know you got to transition to other items on the agenda, but to start with a negative to go to a positive, there's also clearly the cultural kind of the culture of our own community and the education in our own community. I was on the plane, as Sheila said, I am excited about this because this is about improving lives and changing trajectories. And I was telling a woman on the plane about the excitement of this campus. She's from Lee Harvard, and she's lived there all her life. I know her husband because I worked at City Hall with him. But the deadpan response was, I'm for law and order. And I am too, but we're coming at this from different prisms that can create different outcomes. It's not a disparage on her, it's just, there was a little bit of a resistance to the open-mindedness of a campus concept of multiple services. And that might come from a person who's sick of crime on her street or something, and I respect that. But we gotta work on why we're doing this and why we're ending up with a better practice in our community than what's been the practice of overcrowding a jail with no services that are.
Well, that culture issue is so important.
Yeah.
Particularly when you have this nonsense about every immigrant you need to fear.
Yeah, exactly.
When people are being manipulated by
Yeah.
ginned up fears of people that are other. And how do we get into that process? And it's really hard.
And again, trying to meet people where they're at and understanding the points of view of our colleagues that are in leadership positions on this. I just keep trying to meet people where they're at on these conversations. I wanted to say, Sheila said we could do this. I was hoping, talking to Chair Grimes and the team we talked with in the last few weeks, could this group, has some budget, have a conversation at the right time about where we could apply ourselves to this conversation? Because you're already assembled and you're a team of community leaders. What could we at CASE do to, elevate this conversation in the community and the outcomes on the campus? So just kind of put that back to you with hope that we can work on this.
Executive Romaine, thank you for the passion you bring. I didn't get to know you and work with you before, but you can feel the passion, the vision. Thank you, Councilwoman Conwell, for being here, for being part of the work that's happening to explore the possibilities. Please extend our gratitude to the other members of council and Council President Jones. This could be transformative for our community, integrative, and enable. Three words that you said, Member Blackwell, that are powerful as I think about how we create community and culture around this kind of transformative change. Yeah. You said equity, justice, and healing. And the harm of structural racism, the harm of systemic violence is that it creates inequities, it causes injustice, but it also causes these traumatizations that we don't turn toward the healing element. And I had the chance to listen to Brenda Glass at the Trauma Recovery Center that is here in Cleveland talk about the importance of her work in helping people who are both victims and at times perpetrators of harm. And what we know about violence and trauma is hurt people hurt people. And how do we help our community members understand that incarcerating a juvenile as an adult won't deter the future harm because it's only going to harm them further? I'm forgetting, it may have been Ms. Glass herself who said, healed people heal people. And so this feels like a prime opportunity. And so deep gratitude to you and for all of your contributions to the conversation.
Get well, back at you. Thanks for keeping your sights on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know we have, our time is nigh and I want to be able to spend adequate time with our guests from Metro Health. So I'll keep my comments short. County Executive Renee mentioned that Dr. Gullett, myself, and Member Shoemate met. I subsequently had a chance to talk with Member Cavanis as subcommittee chairs and thinking about how do we re-engage as an advisory, a body that is offering advisory input, and organize ourselves around the work. We've got our existing subcommittees, so there are some suggestions that are on the table. But one of the things that the chairs, subcommittee chairs need to do, and myself, need to gather. We need to talk about some different initiatives that are happening in the community that are seeking to engage the community, get data from the community as we're conceiving of how we want to engage or re-engage with the community and learn from them. And we also need to just engage in some strategy dialogue, and hopefully we can get to some of that today so we just can get some shared agreement around the objectives and goals of our work alongside County Executive Renee and County Council. What I think is powerful is we've got a really transformative initiative underway that the county executive has asked us to consider being an advisory to. I'd love to see how we can support the youth wellness center and thinking about where disproportionality and disparities may exist there, and how equity is being conceived of as that work is moving forward. So some big projects, and with the will of this group and some leadership from the group, we, I think, can absolutely support that. All right, the last comment I want to make is to you, Member Cannon. I just want to uplift the gratitude that's already been shared and extend my own. So many of us are around this table with lived experience and professional experience that are intersecting and bringing us to the work, but the depth of impact of that lived experience varies based on buffers that were available to us, the zip code we grew up in, or the parental experience we had, their trauma experience, the dynamics of the times that we found ourselves growing up in, and you thriving in this moment is a real blessing to this group, so we are very grateful to you. There's been strong advocacy from Member Sims and others to have folks with lived experience in this room helping drive decisions, and I think that we have made it a really powerful step toward really ensuring that the depth of experiences is as diverse as the membership in this body, so thank you.
Is it, Ronnie, just agreeing totally with Chair Grimes, do you mind giving a minute of kind of what you went through? One of the things that struck me when you were at the church on the panel dais was talking about the culture within the facility you were in, at least one of them that there were mental help to you in that journey. And the reason I'm asking you to maybe bring that forth is it felt to me in the places we just visited that culture building within the facilities really matters to the outcome of the whole, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Nobody lived it like you.
Definitely does. Obviously, media kind of swayed our vision as to what, society ought to look like, right? Especially as it relates to our youth. Just briefly, I was just at the Indian River Boys School yesterday, and some of the staff, not to, criticize them, they were fixated on trying to villainize these young men about a bowl of candy that I brought to give away. And I'm like, I'm not focused on the candy. The candy is nothing. I want to have this conversation with these young men and everything, right? So everything was just so negative, like just, getting on them. I'm going to feel like, no, just look at the positive side of it and everything, right? When last time they had a Reese cupcake, right? Obviously they want to taste that, right? But to that point, I really feel, one, thank you for this opportunity. As I always tell people, I'm like the voice for the voiceless. There's a lot of people that would want to be in this space, they just don't know how to articulate their thoughts and their feelings about what's taking place in their lives and their community lives. So being able to do that, I really appreciate you for nominating me for this opportunity, and that's what I bring to the table. Just that perspective as to what's going on within our community. As you mentioned, Chairperson, that all of us have some element of lived experience, right? Whether it's directly or indirectly, it's just like, how do we give our voice to that and everything? That's what I'm here for. But just briefly for myself, like I did have that network as I spoke at the Greater Cleveland Congregation Forum a little over a year ago. My situation was a little unique. It wasn't like the exonerated 5 out of New York or 4 out of New York, where the guy was, constantly beat on while he was in prison. That wasn't my story, right? Some people look for that, aspect of it and everything. I was, kind of blessed along my journey where there was a network. I was like the first juvenile that was ever incarcerated at the Trauma Correctional Institution at the age of 16 in 1993. And obviously the guys that were there were like, wait a minute, they're sending our babies to prison. It was like a aha moment for them as well. And so I had like this network that was surrounding me where, like, no, this guy's not going to be picked on. He's not going to get, abused, which you often hear the stories about. But I mentioned that's not the case, obviously, going forward. But for me, I had that unique experience where I had like a network of people around me and they encouraged me to educate myself with the time that I had while I was incarcerated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting the comments, and again, Member Cannon, thank you. All right, where are we? We need to approve the minutes. Can I get a motion on the minutes? Thank you. Second. Okay, thank you. Alrighty, the minutes are accepted. And, we're gonna move to our presentation from our friends here from Metro Health.
You want me to do a brief introduction? So unfortunately, we all know Dr. Modlin, who's a member of the case. He was unable to join us today as he has patients he's seeing. However, his colleagues are here, and I thank you for listening and being present to provide us with an overview and brief presentation on the Metro Health Minority Men's Health Fair. An extremely, again, to use the word transformative and important and vital community event. We have with us Michelle Davis Ishmael, who's the Executive Director of Health Equity and Community Engagement at Metro Health. She served as a registered nurse for 16 years, and her work is focused on healthcare quality improvement, case management and utilization, health equity, risk adjustment, and healthcare policy. She's joined by LaShawn Carson, who is the Health Equity and Program Coordinator at Metro Health. In this role, she's responsible for the integration of health equity initiatives across all of Metro Health's hospital departments. That includes not only fostering collaborations with system-wide and community partners, but also formulating health equity strategies, managing budgets, conducting health equity policies, and contributing to the implementation of innovative health equity programs throughout Metro Health Hospital. So again, I welcome you. I thank you for being present. I'm happy that I get to see one of you who I see on bi-weekly Zoom calls in person. So welcome, and the floor is yours, so thank you again.
So, good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to stay in the stead of Dr. Charles Motlin. As you know, the Men's Minority Health Fair has been around for quite a long time, over 20 plus years. He started it over at the Cleveland Clinic. He was there for 28 years, and so it was reestablished at Metro Health in 2022. And so the goal of this fair is just simply to provide free health screenings for all men, but specifically minority men, because they are the ones, unfortunately, that are affected by health disparities, right? And so the purpose of this fair is to allow the men to come to understand what healthcare is. Because oftentimes, let's say, minority men, they don't seek healthcare. Only time they're in the hospital is if it's an emergency. So, next slide, please. And so this is the core mission of what the fair is. We provide 30 plus screenings for all the men. And the one thing I want to point out is that we want to empower all men, and specifically men of color, so that they can adopt a better way of life. Our new president, Dr. Erica Steed, she talks about eradicating the death gap, and she wants to improve the health and the wealth of our community. So this is why this fair is so unique to Metro Health. And then also just to provide for physicians, to educate physicians on health disparities. Next slide, please. And so health disparities, unfortunately, our African American men, they have the lowest life expectancy of other races. And oftentimes they suffer from the highest incident of chronic conditions. And you know, those are non-communicable diseases as far as diabetes, heart issues, which are oftentimes preventable. And so, and unfortunately, African American men and minority men, they have the highest incidence of prostate cancer. And they have a twice incidence of prostate cancer, unfortunately, than their counterparts. And then sadly, they are 2 times, hear me, higher death rate than white men, unfortunately, due to the late stage of diagnosis. So the purpose of this fair is just basically to encourage all men to seek early detection, and also to, I'm sorry, I just had a mind block.
You can
Oh,
relate.
Happens to the best of
We
us.
can relate.
Yeah, to seek care and to start with a primary care physician. Because oftentimes when you have a primary care physician, there are early detections and screenings and things that you will get. So next screen, and this fair, free, 30 free screenings. Next slide. And these are just half of what we're gonna offer. And if a person was to seek these screenings within 3 years or so, it'd take a long time and a lot of money. But on this day, April 27th, go on. These are your analysis that we're offering. And the one thing I love about this particular year, because they added on syphilis, and that's an uptick of what's happening in Ohio. And next. And so this is just a patient experience, the first year that we had here at Metro Health. Next slide, please. And so as you can see, the abnormal ratings of cholesterol, creatinine, A1C. So these are just some of the results that was found from that particular fair. Next slide, please. And so this is just a summary of findings, and which I think these numbers are huge because it allowed the men to actually say, someone actually see me and they truly care about me and my health. And so that's what Metro Health is about. We are for the community and we're in the community to assure that everyone is receiving an equitable outcome. And so out of that fair that year, 55%, and which I was so happy about, that the men decided to empower themselves to schedule appointments, to make sure that they are in a better place for themselves as well as for their families. And so it's happening. Saturday, April 27th. This is a unique date because normally over the years it's been on a Thursday. It's from 11 to 4. It's going to be at 2 locations. Our Cleveland Heights location, which is adjacent to our new behavioral health center in Cleveland Heights, as well as we've partnered with Tri-C downtown campus. And so there's going to be numerous of opportunities for men to engage in. There's going to be 100 resource tables there so that they could get different information from different organizations as well. There's going to be different guest speakers. And so it's going to be a host of things for men to enjoy. And we want to engage our Hispanic community as well because their statistics are kind of the same as the Black men, but every man is welcome regardless race, creed, and the ages of 18 and up. Next slide. And so what makes our fair the best to me? It is the volunteers, because we have over 600 plus volunteers being a wayfinder, just making sure that the participants know exactly where to go so that they can get all the screenings, because there are different activities that'll be going on, hair cutting and things like that. So I feel like being a volunteer at this fair, it allows you the opportunity to give back, to be a company arm, because I remember 2 years ago, we started here at Metro Health and I was at the Broadway location. And it was hilarious to me because the women was kind of like dragging the men in and you could see a fear of them, right? So I just feel like the volunteers, the people here at Metro Health is the best because we are really hearing and seeing the need and the pulse of the community. Next slide. And so these are just pictures of the previous slide. We have a radio station that is broadcasting at the same time so that they can get the word out to the whole community. Next slide. Keep going. And so essentially this is the information slide. Individuals can register, but it's not required, and that's our website. And I love this slogan because, oftentimes men, they do have a hard time putting themselves first and their health, but At Metro Health, we want to make sure that everyone receives an equitable outcome and everyone is seen and heard, and every health outcome is important. So I appreciate this opportunity to speak, and thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, can I ask one question? I noticed it's 2 locations. At each location, are they gonna have the same screenings at both?
Yes.
Okay.
Member Wright, you had a question?
I did have, who are your partners in this? So when I hear this, so I've heard about this minority fair for years. And usually it's like, oh, it's happening, oh, it happened. So I guess my question is, are the fraternities involved? Do you have like a Chris Ronayne or a Justin Bibb who will come and get their blood pressure done? Maybe, look, that's a, like.
You're just looking out for us.
Well, you're like a local celebrity.
No.
So it's just, I'm just wondering, do you have some folks, and I mean, the fraternities represent a particular group, but the trucker, the Teamsters, the unions, the trade folks who will be like an ambassador, is there like a committee of partners who are saying we will pull our networks to come to this and make sure they are there and raise that visibility?
Yeah, there is a host of community members. There's like a hub that was created in every area to ensure that the word is getting out. But yeah, there are hosts of people, but I don't know all the names at the moment.
Okay.
But yes, there. But I will bring back for next year to engage the Teamsters
Yeah.
and the truckers, because that makes a huge difference.
The
'cause they're-
trade unions.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I was gonna say, and this is for everyone in the room, so I've come to learn at this late stage in life that there is a test to be assessed that they don't always administer when they're assessing your cholesterol, and it's called the lipoprotein A. It's called lipoprotein little a, and that test can save lives, because when you, and I just speaking personally, we have a mutual friend that had a heart attack that just learned about this late in her life. So you can get your cholesterol tested, and my numbers were fine for years, but I had a doctor that said, let me check your lipoprotein. It's hereditary. My daughters have it, and they're in great shape. I mean, it's fine in a sense of, and what it is an indicator of your risk for heart attack, stroke, and that kind of thing. There are people who live with it for years and don't even know. But if you learn that you have it, you can start taking your Crestor early. And again, the lipoprotein A is a different test. It's a specific test. And what I've come to find out from a lot of medical professionals is they don't administer a test until something happens. Till you have that incident. And so I just ask if that can be considered in the test that they're giving if you're gonna have an audience there. I'm really big about pushing that out.
I will definitely let Dr. Mullen know, because I can tell you on every meeting, he is pushing the envelope to ensure that every nook and cranny of this fair that he's built from the ground up, that it is exceptional, to ensure that everyone, regardless of race, creed, or age, that they come to get these free screenings, because it's definitely necessary.
I'm super excited. I was part of the women's last year.
Yes,
So-
I remember.
So it was huge. A lot of cities have community development managers, and so I'm gonna actually have my community development manager, whose job is to list all the local churches, to get it in the church bulletin, the Sunday church bulletin.
Yeah.
Directs where we go.
Yeah.
But as you continue to create these outreach groups, in addition to the Greeks, and those, make sure that you reach out. There's 59 cities, right? There's probably 59 community development managers, because they are the ones that push it, and they are the trusted people in their cities to get the information out. And mine is to walk into beauty shops, as well as the local churches to get into their bulletins, and to get the beauty shop and barber shops to put it in their businesses. So as you create that list, please add cities' community development managers.
Yeah. We have a faith-based manager that was responsible for making sure that all the pastors know, because we had a clergy breakfast at main campus a month ago, and we had over, I'll say, 50 or so.
I'm just saying, because some of the churches are really small,
Yeah.
really, really small.
Yeah.
And so we we hit the small ones, not the big ones,
Yeah.
because they're already in tune.
Right.
Just asking that,
Oh, no,
as
no.
you grow that list, that's the only,
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that it's not working, but for the
No.
really tiny ones, we've got someone on the ground, most of us do, to get to those.
Absolutely.
those
We have
changes. Thank you.
Reverend Tony Minor.
Yes.
He kind of leads the subcommittee that has been working with the different support groups and outreach. So we will also make sure that he's made aware and has the different contacts, because he truly has been leading a subcommittee to make sure the word is getting out. What does the community need, and making sure that, you know, we have those services at the fair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to know too, these type of fairs, do we look to educate them about gaslighting is a real,
Yes,
we're actually going, changing positions just for that.
yes.
Just kind of push physicians will kind of, oh, you're fine, you're healthy, you don't have to screen, or, you know, or we'll just recheck later. You know, you want to maintain your health. You need someone to understand that's important to you. So, but sometimes, you know, when you're it's a history with a doctor, it is hard to change when someone new, but it's also difficult to.
Yes.
And so, just wondering if you kind of talk to the men about, you know, if you don't feel comfortable with what's happening to you, you know, speak up, or if you don't look at yourself, truthfully, no one else will.
Well said.
I totally agree, and if Dr. Mullen was here, he would say he would let every volunteer know to ensure that the person is seen and heard. But I will take that back to our steering committee, because I think that's very important. By us being a county hospital, being around over 200 years, you would think we've gotten it right, but sometimes we don't. Let's be clear. But I'll definitely let them know, because that's probably why some don't come, is because of the trauma that they've experienced. But I'll definitely let them know. But I'm hoping that that's what's happening, but I'll definitely communicate that.
And I can say too, there's something brewing that will come to light probably in the next, 5 days, on the 20th.
Yes.
That Metro is working on. Very excited. I'm not gonna spill the beans, but very excited about it. But it does deal with that. We have realized that different ethnicities, right? And many times we think equity. One of the things I'm constantly trying to help everyone understand is that equity is not just an ethnicity or a race thing, right? We always have to remember are disabled.
Yes.
Right? So I'm constantly trying to broaden our thoughts of what is health equity. And everyone has their own issues. So one of the things that Metro is really working on and looking towards is part of that, is the patient advocating for themselves, regardless of who you are, what you look like, what your situation is, and pushing for answers. Asking for that life OA. But at the same time, having specialists, right? People who are committed, raising their hand and committed and saying, I want to be the provider who goes to that next level. So this is something that Metro is we're right here with it. Announcement is coming, where we are looking to take it to the next level so that we are teaching you how to advocate for yourself, because we've also educated ourselves on those next steps of advocacy and making sure something as simple as what you're saying, I'll wait till, no, we're no longer waiting. We are going to be ahead of the time, so.
You know, Chair, okay, all right, and I got excited. So,
We're happy.
right, so I would just say, you know, I was recently, had the opportunity to be appointed to the State Commission on Minority Health. And I'm like, why am I,
Congratulations.
right, I'm like,
For
but
all of us.
I'm not the bit of health, why am I on this board? I don't have, because usually it's medical people, and they're like, well, you know, the community bring this to it. But I will say, as I listen to what you're saying, and Dr. Gullett, I think you might be able to speak to also note this. The primary care physician, what is that, internal medicine? Has changed significantly in the hospitals. I won't say anything else other than it has changed significantly. That used to be the place that would quarterback your care.
Correct.
That is no longer the case because it is like a manufacturing, it's like get them in, get them out, get them in.
Referrals.
Yeah, and so, you know, there are like boutique companies like MySpry popping up
Yeah.
who can do that, but everyone can't afford that. And so we are gonna have to teach people how to be their own advocate, how to create their own boutique care, how to create a team around them. And that conversation isn't happening because it typically comes, it's a water cooler conversation or a frustrated conversation, and no one's gonna publicly, go after, criticize these institutions, but it's really just the nature of the work now. And so I just wanted to speak to that. If you do have a sense that you are being your own quarterback, that you have to go see your own specialist, that's real right now. And a lot of people are in the position or have the resources of the time to do that. But people who, if you're barely coming, if you already have these issues, then to take it to the next step, to even know that you are entitled to have a boutique team
Right.
around you, as so that I just want to speak to that and give space to that. And I'm going to take this back to that commission and the Women's Health and Commission, see if it can be helpful.
And I'm glad you're on that, because many times, right, you say, these are a team of doctors and, healthcare people, why me? But we need you, because we want someone who's not thinking Dr. Lane, all the time. And what is your true experience outside of being a healthcare employee? So I am happy that you are there, because we need to hear more from our community and those outside of medical professionals.
I'll just add very briefly, I spent 12 years working at university hospitals for the president of primary care physician. So it was a management service organization, which was the team, UHMSO, of primary care physicians. And to speak to my colleagues, Ms. Wright's point, a lot of it happens with insurance.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so it used to be you had to have a referral from your primary care. That was the gatekeeper. And there's levels of care, right? And you're always going to put the full visit, not the limited visit. I remember the super bill because I used to do a lot of the billing and the coding. But we also need to include the insurance companies in this discussion so that the way coverage works, and now that I'm mayor, we go to a broker and we get these brokers to administer insurance, and of course now on the other side I've got to control costs. So we need to talk to insurance to make sure the way the coding goes, it actually dictates that this is what happens to happen, because that's where the power is, in the reimbursement. It is in the reimbursement. And my doctor that I worked for 12 years was very clear on that, how we bill to get the maximum reimbursement. And so we can control a little bit of how these gatekeepers, the primary care, pediatrics, all of them internal, what they do, because their reimbursement is tied to that. So part of that conversation has to be with the doctors, but we've got to include the insurance companies, because tell me, reimbursement really gets their attention.
Agreed.
How we code.
Especially for the county and the dollars that we get. But I can tell you, Dr. Erica Steed, if you don't know her, she's a force to be reckoned with. And she is pushing the envelope at every given moment to ensure that the hospital will be a global example.
Thank you.
Speaking of that, I was just at an NCQA conference on one of the things that Metro is working on. NCQA has an accreditation for health equity. JCO has a certification for health equity. Metro is working on achieving both of those currently. And one of the things, they had the NCQA conference out in California, which was eye-opening to me, because California as a state is doing some absolutely amazing things. But that is specifically one of the topics that they spoke of. We have got to be more integrated care-wise can't just be hospitals over here, health insurance companies here.
It can't be.
You know, we have to integrate with our state and local government, our healthcare facilities, and our health plans to move this effort forward. So we're definitely taking that advice into consideration and how we're moving forward.
That's encouraging here. Thank you for sharing that. Because we heard a lot.
Member Sims, did you have a question? Or
Yes, I had a couple of comments, actually. On the point, I agree with everything everyone has said about, like, patients advocating for themselves. And I think the initial point of that is like, what questions do I need to ask?
Yes.
Like having a cheat sheet or something, because you can't advocate if you don't know.
You don't know
That's
what
a
to
good
ask.
idea.
Yeah.
So, I think it's very important just to have something really simple to, guide people along that advocacy. And then the second point, which you had mentioned earlier before we got on this conversation, is reaching out to, labor and other, communities. Like, actually, when you were going through this, I was communicating with my team saying, hey, we need to get this out to our membership. We need to try to figure out if we can get a bus that we can get people
Wonderful.
there
I love
too,
it.
because transportation
Yes.
is often a barrier to, to access
Of course.
with
Yes.
this and other things. So, I would invite you all to consider maybe having a labor component as well when these, events are being planned.
Yes.
Because labor unions, we are service employees, right?
Mhm.
Most of our members are Black and brown people and women on the lower scale of earnings within labor. So, and we work with Metro Health, so I think that this is a opportunity for us to get out into the community. One of our missions is to not just get a contract, but really integrate our membership into the community and to have these types of conversations, because education and knowledge is power.
Yes.
And, union members are not just workers, they're members of the community.
Yes.
So I would,
Agreed.
invite you to consider that as part of the planning for these events.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Madam Chair, okay, just really quickly, so the conversation around coding and the insurance and with the Women's Health Commission, there's a woman, her name is Maria Schenbauk. And Maria, she's gonna kill me for throwing her out there. But Maria, she did the overhaul of coding for the clinic years ago. She was actually one of the first women to fly search and rescue in the Navy. She's a kick butt person.
Wow.
She had a company called Outcome Matters that she just sold to, where's Randy Meyer off? Where was he? Cohen and Company.
Yeah, Cohen,
She just
yeah.
sold it to them, but she's a patient at Metro. So she revamped the coding at the clinic. I bring her up to say, in terms of an advisory committee, maybe we pull Maria in to say, if we have a Dr. Steed who is open to new ideas, maybe we bring these players to say, how can we turn this Rubik's Cube to say, what can we influence to that degree, where it's fully integrated?
Yep.
It's a thought.
Yep. It's a great thought.
Thank you so much. Another rich discussion. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, thank
Bringing
you.
it.
No, thank you.
Go back before the Women's Health Fair, or the team that's leading that, because I know that the minority men's health fair has evolved into something more inclusive and bountiful, so we'll have to.
I would just ask if you have a flyer or something
Oh, I
that
have.
you can also go
On cue,
send.
on cue.
Great.
Came prepared.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have something you can send electronically to my assistant, Latia Adams, who I think you guys
Yes.
have been in touch
Yes.
with, that would be great as well.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Because they can get that on the screen, right? The little advertisement that we have throughout the building.
Oh, absolutely, and all the comments made, about trusted messengers, churches, council members, we want to get your word out,
Thank
both
you.
this one and the women's health, so, yeah. I'll work with Naila on that and getting that out there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you,
Yeah.
ladies, so much for being here. We really
Yeah.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I go
can leave the flyers.
I'll take them, yes.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
get 'em.
you.
And as Naila grabs those flyers, may I turn to you, Director Lockett? I know we're very near the end of our time, but did want to make sure we have an opportunity to get an update from you and Director Combs.
Okay, thank you. Great conversation, a lot of motivation. I'm gonna be quick. DEI, we kicked off our year, with January with training, so they provide a sustainable option of DEI training for new county employees and newly promoted managers. We're looking to roll out a schedule beginning the latter part of this year. Yesterday, we had our kickoff of our annual What's Next, which is geared toward our workforce, keeping them involved and engaged in the process. That was yesterday, and we're looking to do training based on the survey results from employees on work and life balance in September. We will follow up with the Mid-Year Equity Summit in June that we did last year. We're doing it virtual this year so we can increase the participation. And finally, I wanted to bring up that we are having the Vendors Fair. We had it last year in July where we can give face-to-face assistance. Some of the feedback from vendors was that they wanted us to do it more often. So we're gonna do it in April, July, and October. So the one in April is gonna be April 11th. So I can send this to Naila, but if you could let your vendors or people in the community know, they can not only find out what the county's purchasing, as the county procurement staff will be there, so they can talk to those department personnel about their offerings and how they match with some of the goods that the county will be buying. We'll also have purchasing staff there and DEI staff there to help provide face-to-face assistance with vendors on how to register in our M4 supplier portal system, how give them information on the county forms that kind of chase people away, but they can get their questions answered on that, and also if they want to get certified with the county. So again, that's April 11th. If they miss this one, that's fine. We'll come back in July, but we like to push this information out so hopefully all vendors that want that personal face-to-face assistance, they can come. And also we have development. Last year they were there giving information about small business loans, our small business loan programs.
Can I say, can you include, Director Lockett, the communication departments? I know
Yes, we
Callie,
work with.
but we have one now, and,
okay.
so we can get that on our website as well.
Yep.
And we're so happy for that, y'all just don't know.
Definitely.
I'm gonna just take a picture, and that way I can send it out.
Director Lockett, can you mention, for the good of this council, about the recommendation that the Government Alliance on Race and Equity provided that we redo the survey sort of every 2 years?
Yes, so we have an annual membership with GARE, the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. We did it in 2022. We're looking to do it probably next year. It's a 2 at the minimum, 5-year process. So they have a survey that's part of your membership that they try to gauge the awareness and also your employees' awareness, not only about your program, about their perception and grading of your entity's progress in moving that needle as far as racial equity in your organization. We did it in 2022. They have a very, it also provides the opportunity to have an apples-to-apples comparison with other government entities, not just what's going on in Cuyahoga County, but also what's going on in comparison with other government entities. And part of that survey, you definitely want engaged employees to be sampled because they will not, they have a minimum response rate based on the size of your employee population. So we did it in 2022. And we're looking to probably, at the earliest, do it next year. That would be 3 years, but at the latest, within that next 2-year window. And we had a significant response. It's a 50 questions. So it's not a 2-minute survey. So you definitely want to make sure that when you roll out the survey, because they want to sample, a significant sample of your population response time.
Okay. The next one is gonna be in July and October, you said? If they missed that?
Yes.
Okay.
Director Lockett, any update or perspective on the disparity study?
We're doing an RFP.
And so the timing for the study would be?
So the RFP will be select a consultant. We're looking to request a 2-year study period as far as them collecting the data, doing the analysis. They have to do the anecdotal part. That also deals with them getting actual interviews, feedback face-to-face with vendors and the community. So our goal is to complete our process by late summer and have the kickoff there. So as part of the RFP process, we stated our desire that they complete the survey once hired within 2 years. However, again, the consultant, based on their current climate, they do an analysis of not only the court jurisdictions over our area to look at what is the requirement currently for a legally defensible disparity study. So we're hoping to do as part of the RFP process, an interview process, so that as them being the experts, if they feel that the 2-year is too aggressive or that it's not feasible, that's part of their presentation to determine what's the timeline for their study.
Okay, thank you. And the second question, is there procurement changes being contemplated? I was gonna ask, I don't know if you're familiar with procurement changes being considered here at the county?
My understanding is that there is a potential to change the thresholds as
Yes,
far as
threshold.
the county thresholds, as far as what triggers a formal competitive process and relates to an informal process, which triggers the advertisement period that's required. When does that trigger diversity goals, things of that sort.
Thank you.
Ms. Coleman, if folks can give us a few minutes, we will also.
Really brief. So, my name is Kimberly Coleman. I am HR manager. I'm here to give updates from our human resources team to the committee. Thank you for having me. One of the biggest policy changes that we have adopted on February 14th, the county expanded our paid parental leave policy. So previously, employees could get 2 weeks of paid parental leave as long as they were FMLA eligible, which means they would have to have been employed a year and have worked 1,250 hours the prior year. What we did February 14th, County Council adopted it. Now, our expanded policy, all full-time and part-time benefits eligible employees, that's someone who's working at least 32 hours, benefits eligible, with at least 90 days of continuous days of employment, are now eligible to receive 30 hours of paid leave at their base rate of pay to care for their newborn and for a newly adopted child for up to 12 weeks. So what we have updated and changed. It has been a great policy. So if you have a child, you've only been here 90 days, you are eligible to go out on leave for 12 weeks, even though you're not eligible for FMLA. If you do not have enough time accrued, you're able to get leave donation from your coworkers to help you offset those 10 hours that you're not being paid. So the county is paying for 30 hours. You're just going to offset the 10 hours, which is a game breaker for anyone who has had a new child. 12 weeks you need, and that's for any parent, mother, father, and it's for adopted children. So we thought it was problematic because when we had new employees who were having children, they would have to take unpaid leave, which means you're going on to COBRA, and those rates are astronomical. So we are very thankful to our county executive and our county council for working with us to get that passed. So that went into effect February 14th. Just a couple more updates. We will be introducing civility training for our county employees this year. Pre-COVID, we did civility training annually. So we have gotten a training program called Civil Treatment. Our HR team did the first round last week. It's a great program. We're gonna start with our managers as well as our employees, just sort of making sure people are learning again how to work together, be civil, be engaging, taking any type of adverse work environments out of the picture. So that will be coming out to our county employees. We are currently working with a consultant who is conducting a pay equity study to address peer equity and compression issues for our non-bargaining employees. So we're looking at recommendations to level the playing field in anticipation of developing a new compensation philosophy. Hopefully that moving forward, we can include performance-based pay and a framework to ensure that compensation-related decisions are made in a fair and equitable manner. As well as with our talent acquisition team, we're going to work with our talent team to work with the directors to put together recruitment plans for each agency. These recruitment plans will include strategies for recruiting a diverse workforce from different sources, identifying priority applicants but with an equity lens, building partnerships with community stakeholders who champion diversity, and building partnerships with colleges, communities, universities, and accredited training programs to help us reach and attract a diverse population of members from our community. And one of my expanded duties, I know the Clerk Bird was gonna mention this, is with our HR department, I've sort of taken on expanded duties to be a liaison with Director Lockett's department, as well as working with some of our community organizations to help us recruit and find out and just get out there. So we're, we want to be an employer of choice, but we want to make sure we're reaching all the pockets of people to be able to offer them employment here at the county. So those are a few other things that we're working with. And we're also working with Clerk Bird. We want to work with CASE. And the Advisory Committee on Persons with Disabilities. I know Director Lockett and I have a meeting with them this month. So we're just gonna expand our lens as it relates to the county being an inclusive workplace, I should say. Thank you. I was quick. Was that quick enough?
Thank you so much. These are all helpful updates. I think we're gonna take a moment for the GARE update.
We're gonna do I'm not gonna give you the GARE update because of the time, and Member Schumate, I know, is rushing out to catch a flight. However, I do wanna highlight that this year, GARE is hosting the Facing Race Conference, and it's titled Governing for Racial Justice in St. Louis, Missouri. And I've spoken to Chair Grimes about if this organization wanted to support and send me and my colleague who works on the GARE staff. And she was in favor of that, to use part of the money that is budgeted for us to attend. But I think to do it right, although I put on my lawyer hat and I probably should have consulted our counsel who's in the back, but I think we should, just to cover bases, make a motion for that to happen. Would you agree, Victor?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if anybody, but I can't do that because I'm not really a member.
Yes.
I offer a motion that we use part of our budget from CASE to support attending the GARE conference.
Thank you, Member Schmidt. I see a second here. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Alrighty.
And I should have said it's like less than $5,000 for Lottie and I both to attend if there's someone else to attend. It's not like, I'm not taking half of y'all's money to go off to St. Louis, so.
With this, I'm gonna look for a motion to adjourn.
So
Oh, second.
Thank you.
I heard a second over there, I was trying not to.
All in favor? Thank you all so much. Thank you for giving us some extra time. Ms. Coleman, thank you for helping us close out here. We'll look forward to seeing you all next time.